I don't think I'll ever forget the way Detective Hale looked at me that morning, like I was both a witness and a suspect in a crime no one could quite explain. It started with a single fingerprint, out of place and impossible to trace. I'm not a detective or a forensic expert. I run a locksmith business in a small town outside Pittsburgh. Quiet place. Safe. At least it used to be. The call came in just after sunrise. A client of mine, an old widow named Mrs. Renner, was found dead in her home. Natural causes, the coroner said at first. But what brought the police into my shop was something far stranger. On her bathroom mirror, pressed into the glass with chilling clarity, was a bloody fingerprint. Just one, and it didn't belong to her. She had no visitors, no family left, no reason for anyone to be inside her locked house. That's where I came in. I had changed her locks 3 weeks earlier, at her request. She said she felt like someone had been watching her. At the time, I chalked it up to nerves. She was nearly 80, lived alone, and had grown increasingly paranoid over the last year. But now, standing in front of Detective Hale with my customer record in hand, I felt a chill crawl up my spine. They wanted to know if I had a copy of the keys. I didn't. I never keep duplicates. My shop policy is strict about that. Every key I cut is done once, handed over, and the mold is destroyed. Still, they asked me to come to the scene, not because they suspected me, but because there was something else they couldn't explain, and I was the last person to install a lock on her door. The moment I stepped into Mrs. Renner's house, something felt wrong, not in the crime scene way, in a gut-deep, instinctual way. Like the air itself was thicker, heavier. Her living room looked undisturbed, her tea still sitting cold on the coffee table. The bedroom was tidy, no signs of struggle, just a quiet, almost peaceful scene. Until you saw the mirror, there it was. One single fingerprint streaked with dried blood, right in the center of the bathroom mirror, as if someone had leaned forward, pressing into the glass with intent. I leaned in, hesitated, then glanced at Hale. She lived alone, right? He nodded. Yes, and the doors were locked. No signs of forced entry. And here's the part that'll keep you up at night. He paused, pulled a photo from his folder and handed it to me. It's yours. My hands went cold. I looked at the fingerprint, then back at him. What do you mean it's mine? We scanned it, compared it with prints we lifted from your shop door. It's a match. I almost laughed. Almost. But the weight of the moment, the reality of the accusation, my print, at a crime scene I hadn't entered, settled over me like a stone blanket. That's impossible. I haven't been here since I changed her locks. He looked me in the eye, firm. When exactly did you last touch a mirror here? Never, I said. I installed a new deadbolt and cylinder lock on the front door. I never went near the bathroom. He nodded again, like he expected that. Here's where it gets worse. That mirror, it was cleaned yesterday, by her caretaker, professionally. We have the invoice. That print appeared after that cleaning. I couldn't sleep that night. My brain was sprinting in every direction. I checked my shop. Nothing looked out of place. But I couldn't stop thinking about that fingerprint. How could it be mine? How could it appear after the mirror had been cleaned? 3 nights later, things escalated. I woke to a sound, like a key turning in my front door. I live above my shop. It was 2:14 a.m. I grabbed the bat I keep near the stairs and crept down. No one was there. But the door, it was unlocked. The lock I installed myself. The one only I had the key for. I checked the shop, heart pounding, stomach knotted. Nothing was missing, no signs of forced entry, but on the glass display case where I keep finished keys for pickup, a single bloody fingerprint, identical to the one on Mrs. Renner's mirror. I called Hale, told him everything. He showed up an hour later, still in his nightclothes but wide awake. He examined the print, took a photo. His face turned pale. "It's the same one." "But how?" I asked, nearly yelling. "How can it be mine if I didn't touch the damn glass?" He took a deep breath, then said something that didn't fit his usual rational tone. "I've seen this before, once, a decade ago, different town, same print. The case never closed. What happened? The keymaker disappeared, just like the widow, gone without a trace. But his print kept showing up, every year, same time, on mirrors, windows, always just one, and it always matched his." I didn't know what to believe anymore. Logic had no foothold in what was happening. I stopped going to work. I sealed the shop, boarded it up. I even tried moving out of town for a few weeks, staying with my brother 2 hours north, but it followed me. On the third day at his place, he found it, on the bathroom mirror, same print. He called me in, half joking, but his face changed the second he saw mine. "You know this print, don't you?" I nodded. He left the bathroom without another word, packed his bags that night, said he had a bad feeling, left me alone in his own house. That night I couldn't breathe. I kept checking the mirror, wiping it, watching. By morning it reappeared, slowly, like mist collecting, then solidifying into form. I didn't touch anything, didn't move, just stood and watched it manifest. I heard something behind me, light footsteps. I turned, nothing there. But on the wall, where no one could reach, a new print, higher than my own height, still bloody. I called Hale, told him I was losing it, that I needed help. He told me to meet him at his office in an hour. I left immediately. He never showed up. They found Hale's car 3 days later, parked on an empty stretch of highway, keys in the ignition, engine still warm, no sign of him. Guess what they found on the driver's side mirror? One bloody fingerprint. It matched his. They tested again. It matched mine too. I'm not writing this to ask for sympathy or to clear my name. I've given up on that. I'm writing it because it's starting again. I wiped every surface last night, every mirror, every window, and this morning, there it was. One print, pressed into the inside of my bedroom window. I don't know what it wants, but I think it's waiting for me to disappear, like the others. I should have never answered that phone call. It was a Wednesday evening just after 8, when the phone rang at the forensics lab. I was already packing up my things, eager to get home, when I saw Detective Halloran's name flash on the screen. That alone made my stomach twist. He never called unless something was truly wrong. "We've got a crime scene, home invasion, one fatality," he said, his voice unusually quiet. "But it's odd. We need you to check the prints, right now." I didn't ask questions, just grabbed my kit and drove through the rain-soaked streets of Raleigh. The address he gave me led to a quiet, upper-middle-class neighborhood, the kind where everyone knows everyone. The house was sealed off with yellow tape, its porch light flickering like it knew something. Inside, the air was thick with unease. A middle-aged man, Patrick Delaney, was found dead in his study. Blunt force trauma to the head. No signs of forced entry. Nothing stolen. His wife, Dana, said she had gone out for groceries and returned to find him like that. That's when Halloran pulled me aside, eyes slightly wider than usual. We dusted the whole room, desk, shelves, door handle. We found 12 fingerprints, he said, pausing, but the room was locked from the inside, no broken windows, and there are 13 points of contact on the desk. One set of prints is missing. I stood over the desk, heart pounding harder than I wanted to admit. Halloran was right. There were 12 full, lifted fingerprints, all matched either Patrick or his wife. But there was one more place, a clean impression on the edge of the desk, where someone had clearly gripped it tightly. No print, not a smudge, not a partial, just nothing. I've never seen a contact point this clean, I muttered. It's like whoever touched it didn't have prints. Halloran looked at me. Or didn't exist. We both laughed, but it was thin and hollow. I ran every chemical test I knew. Ninahydrin, superglue fuming, UV light, nothing. It was like the desk had been touched by air, and yet the indentation was there, visible, undeniable. A hand had been there. It had pressed there. Dana Delaney sat on the couch, pale and dazed. I asked her again if anyone else had been in the house. Her voice trembled. No. I locked the door myself when I left. Pat was working in his study. No one else has a key. I turned to leave, but something made me glance back. The study door had scratch marks near the lock. Thin ones, like from nails. Human nails. Back at the lab, I tried not to let the missing print haunt me, but it followed me. That invisible 13th print. I reviewed the case files, even reprocessed the samples. At 2 a.m., I was about to call it a night when the lab's motion sensor activated. I froze. I was the only one in the building. The screen in front of me flickered, then blinked to a photo, an image I hadn't pulled up. It was a scan of the Delaney crime scene, the desk, but now there was a print on the edge. I blinked hard. The image pulsed for a second, then vanished. I rushed to recheck the photo. Nothing. Still blank. Was I exhausted? Hallucinating? Just then, my lab door creaked open. No one entered. But the hallway lights outside flickered once, then went dark. I stepped outside, calling out. Silence. Until my desk phone rang. I stared at it. My breath caught in my chest. Who was calling the lab at this hour? I answered, only static. Then a voice, barely audible, whispered, "He saw me." Over the next few days, I couldn't let it go. I ran background checks, dug into old files. That's when I found something strange. 5 years earlier, in a neighboring town, there had been a nearly identical case. A man murdered in a locked room, no signs of forced entry, and, most disturbingly, an unidentifiable 13th print. But that case had gone cold. The fingerprint record was corrupted, smudged and unreadable. When I requested the physical archive, the lab technician hesitated. "We don't have it anymore," he said. "The evidence room it was stored in burned down last year. Whole section. No cause ever found." I returned to the Delaney house to inspect again, this time alone. Dana wasn't home. I made my way back to the study. The house was silent except for the ticking of a grandfather clock in the hallway. I crouched beside the desk again, examining the same edge. It was cold, too cold, the kind of cold that goes through your skin and seeps into your ribs. I pulled out my brush and lightly dusted the same spot. Still no print. But this time, my brush picked up something else. Tiny black particles, almost like soot. Back in the lab, I analysed the particles, carbon-based, but laced with trace elements of human skin cells, degraded, ancient, impossible. I ran it through the national database, hoping for a miracle match, but what I got was terrifying. A partial correlation, a fragment of a print that matched 6 different unsolved murder cases across the country. Each one had the same elements: locked rooms, missing prints, terrified spouses with no explanation. Dates ranged back 27 years. What kind of person could commit murders for that long and leave no real trace? Unless it wasn't a person. That night, as I was going through my notes, the lab printer turned on by itself. It printed a single sheet, a fingerprint, one I had never seen before. Smudged, burned, twisted, but unmistakably human, or almost. Beneath it, one word was printed: found you. I didn't go home that night. I slept in my office, if you could call what I did sleeping. Around 4:12 a.m, I woke up shivering. The temperature had dropped significantly and the lights were flickering again. I heard soft footsteps outside my door, not hurried, slow, deliberate. I grabbed my flashlight and quietly stepped outside. The hallway was empty, but just beyond the door, on the glass, I saw it, a fingerprint, one I hadn't left. I pressed my hand against it. It was still warm. Before I could react, the lab's mainframe system started flashing. Every screen in the building blinked with the same image, that same burned fingerprint, slowly rotating. Over it, a voice echoed from the intercom. It was Dana's voice. He kept seeing it in the mirror, said it stood behind him at night, said it had no face, just fingers. So many fingers. I met with Dana again. She was pale, shaken, and smelled faintly of smoke. She didn't look surprised when I told her about the fingerprint showing up in the lab. Patrick used to work on cold cases, she whispered. He pulled files others wouldn't touch. He told me once, there was a killer no one could ever trace. A killer who left no fingerprints, just an absence, an empty space. I asked her how she knew the fingerprint had no face. She didn't respond. She just rolled up her sleeve. And there, on her forearm, burned into her skin, was a distorted fingerprint. Fresh, raw, still oozing. I drove back to the lab, ready to resign, to walk away from it all. But as I entered, I saw the lights already on. My desk had been rifled through, and on the glass surface, 13 new fingerprints, all identical, all mine. It was a cold Thursday night when David Holloway came back to his apartment on the edge of Westbridge, a quiet neighbourhood, filled with aging houses and whispering trees. He had just returned from his late shift at the forensic lab, exhausted and craving silence. The apartment lights were off as usual, but something stopped him right at the threshold. The door was ajar, not wide open, just barely enough for someone to slip through without sound. David stood frozen, his hand still on the doorknob, trying to recall if he had forgotten to lock it. He was methodical by nature, bordering on obsessive. He always locked the door, always. His heart started to race, his breath shortening as the possibilities raced through his mind. Had someone broken in? Were they still inside? With the caution of a man who'd seen too many crime scenes, David pushed the door open slowly. The creaking hinge betrayed him with every inch. He stepped in, clutching his keys between his fingers like improvised brass knuckles. The living room was dark, but nothing seemed disturbed. His laptop was still on the table. His books were where he left them. No signs of a struggle, no signs of entry, just the door. He checked the windows, all locked. He even peeked behind the curtains, absurdly. The apartment was eerily still, yet David couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't alone. That feeling you get when someone's eyes are watching you from behind. He felt that now, prickling at the back of his neck. It stayed with him long after he turned on the lights. The next morning, he noticed something strange. A smudge right on the inside of the doorframe. David leaned closer. It wasn't dirt. It wasn't paint. It was an oily residue. And within it, barely visible under the morning light, was the unmistakable swirl of a fingerprint. His chest tightened. As a forensic analyst, he had dusted thousands of prints, identified criminals from the smallest partials. But this one was unusual. It was missing loops. It had no arch, no whirl, just a strange spiraling pattern he had never seen before, almost circular, like it was drawn rather than made. He scanned it anyway. He couldn't help himself. The lab was his second home, and curiosity was a disease he could never treat. That afternoon, when he fed the print into the system, the screen blinked twice before returning a result. Match found. David stared in disbelief. The database pulled up a file with his own name, David Holloway. He blinked hard, double-checked the fingerprint ID. It was flagged as his left index finger, but he hadn't touched the frame from the inside. He hadn't even noticed the smudge until that morning. And the pattern, it didn't match any of his real fingerprints. He checked again. It said the same thing. How the hell? He whispered, the words catching in his throat. His file listed 32 known prints, 10 fingers, and multiple partials from cases he'd been involved in. But now, there was a 33rd. The system showed it clearly. A print unlike the others. Same name, same ID. But the pattern was alien. Impossible. David printed out the scan, held it up to the light. The spiral was too perfect. It seemed to move if you stared at it long enough, almost like it pulsed. He began to feel dizzy. He set the paper down and stepped away. Something wasn't right. Later that night, he couldn't sleep. He dreamt of black corridors, of eyes watching from behind doors that never opened, and always of fingerprints smeared on mirrors, walls, skin. The next night he awoke with a start. 2:47 a.m. His apartment was silent, yet he heard something. No, someone breathing, deep and slow. David held his breath, heart pounding. The sound was coming from the hallway. He got up, every muscle in his body tight. He moved silently to the door and listened. The breathing stopped. He opened the door quickly, but the hall was empty. Then he saw it. Another smudge. This time on the hallway wall, just outside his bedroom. The same spiral print. He backed away slowly, locked the door, and leaned against it. He didn't sleep again. The following day, he returned to the lab, his hands trembling. He pulled up the file again, scanned all of his known fingerprints. The system now showed 34. Another spiral had been added. He didn't submit anything new. He hadn't touched the scanner. His colleague Marcy noticed his pale expression. "You okay, Dave? You look like hell." He didn't know what to say. How could he explain this? That something was adding fake fingerprints to his identity, and the system accepted them as real. Then the final shock, when he checked the latest spiral fingerprint. It was tagged with a timestamp. 2:47 a.m., the exact moment he woke up the night before. Paranoia took hold. He began taping over everything: light switches, doorknobs, his phone screen, anything that could hold a print. He started leaving flour near doorways to check for footsteps. Every morning, the flour was undisturbed, but another spiral appeared. On the fridge, the bathroom mirror, even on his skin once, just above the collarbone. He scrubbed it off in horror, but it reappeared the next night, slightly lower. David began to lose his mind. He covered every mirror, every surface. He stayed at motels, but no matter where he went, the spiral followed. Desperate, David went back to the lab and began decoding the spirals themselves, measuring angles, mapping the flow. One night, he fed a high-res scan into an AI deconstruction tool meant for image analysis. The result stunned him. Hidden within the spiral's vector path, between every sixth ridge, was a message: "You are mine." He stared at the screen, eyes wide, breath hitching. It was then that he realized this wasn't a print. It was a mark, a signature. Something intelligent was placing it. Something that had access to systems, to identity databases, to him. The last straw came when he visited his parents in an attempt to escape. He didn't tell them what was happening, just said he needed to rest. That night, his mother called from the kitchen in a panic. There was a mark on the window. It was his spiral. David froze. His father tried to comfort him, saying it was probably from before, but David knew better. He ran outside. No footprints in the snow, no signs of tampering, only the spiral. The next morning, both his parents' fingerprints had mysteriously vanished from their government records. Only David's remained, now showing 35 total, 2 more than before. He stopped trying to run after that.